The walk that wouldn't end. I recently turned 40, and I've had a pretty interesting life. Married, 4 kids and a stable career. Unfortunately, during a checkup, I was told I was overweight. Wanting to live to see my grandkids, I decided I'd do something about it. Every day after work I traveled to a local nature trail. There I tried to walk at least a mile before going home, between the serene sights of the forest and listening to music. It became a peaceful stroll I looked forward to every day. After changing some eating habits, I was relieved to see the weight come off. But I wasn't finished. After losing 20 pounds I didn't plan on stopping. One day after work I once again planned to go walk. This time however, I noticed something different. A little ways down from the usual wooded path I took, was yet another trail. I hadn't noticed it before, but maybe it was new. I didn't see any signs or human activity, but I figured why not? A change of scenery might be nice every once in a while. So I put in my earbuds and began my trek. As I started, I couldn't help but notice a few things. The usual trail had signs pointing you in the right direction and a wooden track to walk on. This one was only a grassy path surrounded by thick woods. It was odd, but I shrugged and kept going. With the oldies blaring in my ears, I was able to go over a mile. Now drenched in sweat and having a feeling of accomplishment, I was heading home with my head held high. While walking back, I failed to notice how deep I went, as the trail looked exactly the same. Getting tired, I was hoping that I'd see the end soon, but it just kept going, showing no signs of an exit. Looking up at the sky, I could see it was getting late. Feeling concerned, I pulled out my phone to call my wife and check in. Much to my chagrin, I had absolutely no cell service. With no other choice, I had to keep pushing forward. I walked and walked till I was out of breath, but still no exit. I'd sit on the ground trying to catch my breath and figure out an explanation. I definitely don't remember walking this far. Did I take another path? No, that was impossible. The entire trail was a straight line. Maybe I got carried away and lost in my tunes. Perhaps I had a burst of energy and went farther than expected. So I stood back up and continued my trek back. I noticed the moon starting to become visible, giving the sky a dark blue glow. It wouldn't be long until nightfall and I definitely didn't want to be out here. I prayed that I'd see civilization again soon. After what seemed like an hour, I was still out here. I was so tired and the path showed no signs of changing. Where the heck was I? Why was this happening? I know I didn't walk that far. I'm almost 300 pounds. Under normal circumstances I could have called for help, but not only did my phone have no service, it was now dead, the battery completely drained. It's safe to say I was beginning to panic. Here I am lost in the woods and now it's pitch black dark. I couldn't hear anything. I didn't see anyone. This was getting scary, but even though things were looking bad, cooler heads always prevail. So I glanced over at the woods next to me and got an idea. Since this path wouldn't end, maybe the forest would lead to an exit. So I left the trail and started pushing through the thick brush. I could feel the briars sticking into my flesh and twigs cracking beneath my feet. I was so tired praying that I was close to getting out of here. I wanted to go home and get something to drink, as well as explain myself to the wife. Just thinking about it gave me a sliver of hope. Unfortunately, I soon broke through the thick shrubbery. What I saw before me was the same path I had started on. The same path I had walked for hours. I was back on it. Now panicking like never before, I ran through the trees once again. I don't know how, but maybe I got turned around while having to snap branches. Perhaps I just went in a big circle. Regardless, I was getting desperate. As I began yelling at the top of my lungs, screaming out hoping that someone would hear me. I hollered until I was out of breath. I didn't hear anything in reply. I fell to my knees, feeling completely defeated. Something wasn't right. I didn't know where I was, but it wasn't a nature trail. It felt like I was an ant trying to find my way out of a maze, like someone was toying with me. This was still Earth, right? Not some gateway to hell? My breathing got harder, this time out of sheer terror. I started to hyperventilate, swearing the woods were closing in around me. I wanted to see my wife again, my children, even my grouchy boss. I didn't want to die out here. I stood up once more and slapped myself to fight the panic. I had to make it out. There was no other option, so I ran. I ran and didn't stop, tearing through the thorns and vines, ignoring every sting. My heart was beating so fast, but I wasn't stopping until I found a way out. As the adrenaline flowed, I forgot how exhausted I was. I kept coming back onto that god-forsaken trail, but I wasn't giving up. I closed my eyes and kept running, not letting even death knock me down. After what seemed like forever, I ran into something hard. So hard that I let out a yell and hit the ground. As I opened my eyes, I was met with a ticked-off policeman. He let out a pained groan before shining his flashlight in my face. As our eyes met, His jaw dropped. He quickly grabbed his walkie-talkie and called for backup. The officer explained to me that I had been missing and my wife called them for help. When he told me how long I'd been gone, I nearly fainted. The man said that I had vanished for 4 days straight and that my family was worried sick. He said that search parties had been formed and signs were hung up. He told me they had started to lose hope before I ran into him. Back at the station I was reunited with my beautiful family. I hugged my kids so tight and gave my wife the biggest kiss. With tears in their eyes, they begged for an explanation. When I told them what happened, I could tell they didn't believe me, but seeing my cut-up legs and sweat-soaked clothes was a pretty good argument. The cops would even give me a breathalyzer test to see if I was drunk. When it came back negative, everyone was confused. Since my explanation wasn't winning them over, I decided to show them the trail. The next day my wife and 2 officers followed me to the path. I knew I wasn't crazy or a drunk, and they were about to find out. But as we arrived, I want you to guess what happened. The path wasn't there, instead only thick woods. The breath left my lungs. I absolutely couldn't believe it. Where did it go? It was right here yesterday. What was going on? While I stood speechless, my wife and the cops gave me an odd look. My wife told me that I must have been tired, that my job was getting to me. She said I needed to take some time off and relax. But I shook my head and persisted. This couldn't be happening. What happened to me? Where had I gone for all the time? Nothing made sense. I was brought home and told to rest. Everyone gave me sympathetic looks. As time went on, things went back to normal. But I'd never forget. Something strange happened in those woods and I never got any answers. One thing was for sure, I ended up joining a gym like a normal person.